All right, I think stream is okay then. Welcome to the stream. If anybody's here, this is one of my first streams. So I'm working on this feature, which is basically to my validate whatever choice you choose from the list in this prompt from Inquire that I made. Uh, I had implemented it before so that you could, if you have it in sort of the one that's called suggest only mode, then you could validate the text that you wrote. So if you had some rules for that, you could make sure that text got validated. I tried to align myself with Inquirer as much as possible. But the other part of this prompt is when you have not suggest only, when you have to choose something from a list, and that is similar to Inquirer list prompt. The thing there is you have all the options in advance, and my thought initially was that, well, why would you even present an option that isn't selectable, or at least when you have the ability to also show options as disabled. But then someone pointed out that if you in this one, if you have a scenario where the validation is slow, then it's not good to run it through all the options and check if it should be hidden completely or if it should just be disabled. So I'm implementing now feature that you always validate. So basically I have, as far as I'm here. So I left off here with a test that is failing here. So just to help myself remember where I should pick up. So the test is, of course, now failing the expectation. And what I ended with was, I'm not sure if I should pass, if it's a suggest only mode, if I should pass the text or the full choice. That's the thing. So if I reason that I should align with the text prompt when it's suggest only mode, and I should align with the list prompt when it's list mode, then I guess this is how it should be. Only pass the text, and here only pass the choice object, which has value, name, and short, which is something shown. Yeah. So I'm not sure, 100% sure what I should do here, because I could construct a choice object here, sorts of. Um, hmm. Since the other one is suggest only, even though you select something from a list, I think you should validate it somehow. But I think, again, the items that you get from a suggestion should only be a suggestion. And if I pass choice also up here, great, then I don't know, is it then anymore just a suggestion, or is it just pure the actual choice? All right. So I think this is actually fine. So here I need to test that the validation function is called with the choice object. So how can I do that? Probably should have something like this test. And then duplicate that here, because it doesn't matter in this case if it is synchronous or asynchronous, the function will be called in the same way anyway. So instead here of testing that it returns false, I can just go sign on stub returns. It is not important what it returns really, is it, for this test? Although I might not need to do it just to get here. So get promise for answer, resolve choices. So if it completes, it should fail, right? Because I'm returning false, same as the other text I copied from. I guess I should just go expect. No, sign on called once, and then I check um, const valid validate equals. So I'm gonna do it like this, and then here down here I should check that validate has been called at least once. That is true. And I should check that validate has been called with exactly. Oops. Called it exactly validate. What should it be called with? Should be called with the choice, which is the first one, which with my test data here is foo. Okay. Should be called with foo. I think this is going to fail because now I'm passing a string, not the. Okay. This is not being called, this one. Why is that? Okay, this is not supposed to be called. I'm gonna change it to true because I don't need this scenario. So basically I should have instead I should have copied validates async true. Uh, promise for answer. Promise. Okay. Let's see. So I'm saying that validation pass is true now because it doesn't matter. So don't need anything of these ones. Return. I don't need done anymore up here. Exactly. So now it says that should be called twice, but it was called once. Exactly. But I just changed that to failed test. Oops. Called once. Now it says that it should have been called with this. Well, I say it should be called with foo, but it's called with this one, which is good because that's what I expect. So let me do. Basically, it's all this. It's name, foo, short, foo, value, disabled, undefined, disabled, undefined. So let's see. I'm just gonna check my chat. So back to the code. I just pasted something in my chat to See if there's people watching. Seems 3 people watching. I don't know, that seems not correct. Well, I'm watching one, maybe 2. Someone else might be watching. That's cool. All right. So now it is still saying it is with exact. That's probably because it's going to match on the object reference, which is not what I want. I want to call with what's missing here. Name foo, short foo, value foo. Name foo, short foo, value foo. Disabled, undefined. It's probably because it's an instance here. Okay. So I'm gonna instead say that sign on. You have matcher. Sign and match. If I do this, I think it should pass. Yeah, because now I just have to sort of look like the same object, which is great. And then it should also be called with answers object so far. Well, in this case, that should just be like empty object. Hmm. Is it called with anything at all? Just say that it's going to be called with an object, any object. And it's not. Okay, so I need to check now if I go to my browser. I'm going to open Inquirer and see exactly how the validate function is supposed to work. Validate function. Receive the user input and answers hash. Should return true if value is valid and an error. Otherwise exactly false. Yeah, sure. So it seems that the answer hash should be coming, but in my case, it's not. Is that because I have faulty implementation? Seems so. Look. So the old implementation was also bugged done. It didn't pass the answers hash, which is crucial to do the to have all information to do the proper validation. Hmm. Do I have the previous answers hash? Hmm. Self answers. Yeah, I think this is how that's supposed to work. See if I, oh shit, I mean, and then I need the editor now. So here, but if I go back to the browser again, which because I need to check something else. So in my library, I say that source will be called the previous answer object and the current user input. So it will call with answer so far and input. So when I'm doing that here, that means that this object actually contains all the answers. And I can just add it to the validate function here. This answers, okay, this answers. Oh, this isn't correct. All right, so now what? Does it work? Sort of. It's undefined. That's a question. Does inquire pass undefined the first time, or does it pass an empty object? I think it would be safer if it passed an empty object. So where does answers? Do I store anything of that? I don't do anything with answers, so is it hmm. So the question is it I need to check inquire for this actually. How do inquire do this? So if I go to my other terminal here, I can go full screen panel here. So if I open the example and I just have a normal, well, I don't need to have a normal, right? So let's see what's answers here in this validate function. previous answers here. So if answers is undefined, then return undef answers. Let's try this. So if I do run the example down here and I type nothing, it should. So it seems to not be undefined here, even though this is the first prompt. Hmm. So what is it? Um, so it is an object. All right, all right, all right. Can I run this in debug mode here? It's probably better, right? Start it again. It probably doesn't run. Is it even running? Yeah, it is. Okay. But I don't have any way to interact with it since, so I cannot debug it. Can't debug it. I don't know if I can start debugging session from here. Oh, it's not gonna work. Okay, so so I'm going to do something like oops, oops. Object keys. Well, this is of course me passing it in. It's not inquirer. It has no keys. Oh, it does have keys probably. No, it doesn't have any keys, I guess. But it is an object. But if I add a normal checkbox prompt in at the start, I wonder how they do the thing. I need input. I need text input. Let's see. No choices, but I need. Oops. Validate. Um, input. Oh shit! Thanks. Okay, I'm showing editors. Or I should probably have automatic edit scene switching to switch the scene setup if I change to editor. So in the example here, I want to check if input, no, not input, if answers, if I have answers, then I want to return, just to check, return object keys answers. Okay. Not return true, whatever. answers is something, but it has no key, so it's an empty object. But why is my test failing then? Because it's undefined here. But in the example, even in my own code here, answers is an object. That's weird. So validate is called answers, but answer seems to be, this is hackish, but I'm gonna, hmm, okay. So in the test, it seems that second argument is undefined, but when I do the example, it is not undefined. It is an object. Oh, I need to delete. Multi-line checkbox. Yeah. Now it shows the keys. Okay, so now I have the previous keys. So it does work in the example, but why doesn't it work in the text test? So I have a validate function here, and it's called with validate is called with this object, and I expected another object, which it doesn't. For some reason. Validate source. Default choices are this simple here. Just to be clear, I want to undefined, called with undefined. Um, so now it passes, so it is called with undefined text test. Why the hell isn't it called with undefined? Why isn't it called with an object here? New prompt. Is it because it runs in isolation? Since my test never test that it has any previous prompts. That's probably why. But I just copied. If I go to the browser again, I'm gonna try to switch back now when I remember. See if I see the implementation for Inquirer for, let's say, the uh, checkbox. Isn't there a select? Isn't there a list prompt in core? Checkbox is probably fine as well. Ah, that's not what I want. I want the tests. Where are the tests? What? Has it changed things? Um, I do not get it now. Demo, sure, index. So, ans answers? There's no answers here. It's changed pretty much many things here. So create prompt, where does that come from? Inquiry core. Previous, no, nothing previous. So core test, is this where all his tests are? So answers, I'm just trying to figure out how he has done it, or they have done it, whoever the people are. So packages, space, readme. Are all these tests gone? So here you have prompts, raw list, for instance, or list, prompts list, inquire, lib. Okay, okay. Tests, are his tests. Think specs, prompts, exactly. So list prompt, answers, answer. So he's just creating the new list like this, exactly how I'm doing it. So he doesn't really test how the answer is passed. But I suspect if I go back to my editor, new prompt here. So in my actual code, the constructor is here. It's receiving questions, read and answers. Okay. So if I go back to my code, which is here, and I do pass an object down here. So I say const answers, and I pass it. Then I think that the code's gonna fail now. Yes, because now it's an object. Great. Steno match. Now I'm just gonna say object because it's going to be it's going to be an object. Well, if I do, I could just do the answers object, but it's going to be the answers object. So if I here actually change this, because now it's just any object, but I want it to be the exact answers object with the reference. So I'm going to do exact, call it exactly. And but I think it's going to work. Yeah, because here, so it would be strict here if the object needed to be this exact object. But since I have a matcher, it's like, okay, you want to be a bit looser here, so you can do the match instead. And then here, so if I now replace it with an empty object, it should fail because it's not the exact same object. What? Okay. I'm not sure this is actually using the reference. I'm not sure. Let's check. Back to the browser, sign on, matchers. So if you're not used to sign on, by the way, this is one of my absolutely favorite JavaScript projects. It makes testing so elegant in many ways and so unobtrusive, maybe. I don't know. It's really nice. It's really nice. Okay, so exactly. No, it's not matches I want. I want assertions. Assertions. Where assertions? Assertions there. So exactly, call with exactly, and no others. Possible to question is, can't I? Is there no way for me to check exactly the object that is called? It's not really important here. It's going to be the same. I'm just trying to learn a little bit more about sign-on here. So the question is, can I I think I can do something like const answers are equals. So I do validate and then first call, and then I do args, and then I do argument number 2. That's the answers argument, and I expect answers argument not to equal, but to equal, strictly equal answers. So that's going to be the same object, just in 2 different variables, which is true because it is called exactly. But if I did something like this, it should fail. Come on. No. Yes. Yes. So they are the same empty object, but they're not the same. So good. So that's the way to do it if you want to check some exact argument, is the exact object reference. You have to do something like this. Which let me go back to the browser again. I think if you have so I wanna look up the spice, and then I want to go to first call, right? So first call or first args. Okay, so you have first call, and well, it doesn't seem I have first call dot first arg, second arg, etc. Oh, I do. First call, first arg, last arg. Only first and last. I should have, because silent have usually when you have multiple, you have a like called once, called twice, called thrice. You have helper method that's makes it easier to read. But beyond that, you have to do like call length equals blah 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 7. But I think they should have had first arg, second arg, third arg, and then last arg. But for my scenario, it's last arg I want. So instead of args like this, I can just do last arg. Think, yeah. But anyway, I don't care about this. I'm just gonna leave it like this. Yeah. So that is probably the only test I need to do test this. Well, I've only tested, so my code here is branching, and I'm only testing in non-suggest only mode. I'm probably gonna find my validates. This is my new code for validation when it's not suggest only. But I think I need to implement it here as well. So suggest only. I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna do. No, I'm gonna do it for the one that doesn't fail. Validate sync false, validate sync true. So validate equals non stub turns true. No, not here. I'm gonna do it for the synchronous one, but I'm gonna duplicate it actually, and I'm gonna say calls validate function, call validates function correctly. And then I'm gonna do this, and here I have validate function there. And then returns true. So here I have the same as the other. I don't need to check for these things anymore. How is this done down here? Okay, okay, okay. Basically, I want exactly this, I think. I don't need it done anymore because I'm returning a promise here. So it's really much the same test. I just wanna, not ideal. I'm gonna do it like this here as well. So I have the answers object. It's called with exactly this. I'm gonna do a slight differentiation here just to have some variation on the. So now if I do this test, it should fail because I'm expecting it to return to be called with an object, but it's called with, well, undefined. Exactly, because I'm not typing anything, I'm just moving. So I'm not pressing tab. If I did, can I do tab? So then it should, if I do tab, it should go, well, first move down, and then it's here, and it's moved down, skips the separator, it's on bar, and then it tabs, and then it selects bar, and then it press enter. So it should be bar that I get here now. Well, this is not going to be correct because it's going to be a string. It's my expectation. No. Oh, fuck, I'm back. Sorry, I'm in the editor again. I have to learn to do that. I need a second monitor or something. So I expect that validate should be called with bar, but why isn't it? Why isn't it? It's called with undefined. So that's the line. I don't know if these helper methods tab. Move down, type. I think I should just skip this right now and just do type instead of move down, etc. So type um, something. Type something and then press enter. Now it should be something here as well. Come on, come on. Undefined, still undefined? Hmm. So I'm now gonna check the other tests that do typing. Type banana, enter. Expect to be banana. Really. I'm not resolving the default choices. Oh, is this why? No. Not sure this is working anymore. I think I added. This is working, so I don't need to change that. Okay. It should be enough to just do tab. Why is this different from the test above? The one that I checked here. Let's see. Type. This is the most simple test. This test here. Autocomplete this value selected in the list. Return promise. Promise for an answer. I'm gonna check this in this context. Just paste the text here. It's called. So I'm doing this, and then I resolve the default choices, and then I await the promise, which I same do here to wait the promise. And then I can do tab enter, and then I await this promise. So it is called. It is checked that it is called, but it's not called with something. It's called with undefined. Why is this line of variable here? Why isn't it anything? It's not this, is it? No. No, so it is called with the correct object. It's only the text that is not correct. Only the text that isn't correct. How is that? Can I log this here? It's a bit tricky to debug this, so I'm not sure. It's undefined. Why is it undefined? On submit. Take while, don't have answer. I call this first, then resolve it, then await the promise. I'm just gonna try to type and select tab. Is that gonna help? Nope, nothing. It's really weird. Instead of validate stub, text and answers. Is it called like the third argument or something? Args. It's only called with two arguments. Hmm. Yes, I never tested it before. So I mean it works, but the test is a bit weird. But it does have suggest only, and it, by the way, here, yeah, if it's a function, it is a function. It's a function. Promise brand. So this is a bit weird. This function have just prompt run. What is the promise that I'm getting? What is the promise I'm waiting? It's this one. Stub returns promise, and I just source this function that return this promise, and the readline stub. Okay. Okay, okay. Is this the problem? I just don't understand and why is unsubmit after validation. Does that make sense? So the other one works because I'm not using the line at all. I'm just using the selected, right? So that's the question. Why is, whoops. I mean, it's line or these are a line. I think there might be some test code. Let's, I think I can fix it like this, but this is not what you want to do. Yeah, exactly. So tab is going to be full, right? I think first, just select the first one. Yeah. So what I do suspect, what is this? Search against is not possible. Select something. That's, why is this not working now? Was that because of this one? So now this doesn't work. This is broken anyway. Okay. Why is this broken? What's my code diff here now? This is just example, not important. If it's a just only answers. I haven't changed that test. Somehow it's failing. So it must be this code or this code. which is quite weird. Search it again without choices. If I just return, this one is failing. Press enter and it searches again. It's really weird that this is failing. I think I ran out of the test before and didn't fail. Not called. Why is not called the source? But this is all after. Is it this piece of code maybe? Hmm. Well, I'm gonna. Oh, went back to the code. Example, I want to just discard for now. Discard the whole example file. I'm gonna stage this, and also these tests. But I want to revert something here. So I want to revert basically this. Is this the reason? I don't see why. I'm just trying to debug now. Oops. Yeah, like this. This works. So can I collapse this in a better way? So where is the test that I'm concerned about? Prompt run. Okay, this is messy. I create a prompt immediately. And then I run the prompt. And I reset the source. Did it suggest only the default one? No. Hmm. Right, so this is breaking because doing all of this, It's telling me that valid is a function. Could I do the same here? So I do this RL line and then remove this. Hmm. So I'm doing ba, 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 ba. Oh fuck. Oh no, I'm in the code list. So that was in the Sublime merge. It's called before. Not have been called, it was called once. So this behavior here that it is, if I just press, if I just press, I just pressed enter. I think I need to return promiser. No. So what's going on there? I'm running the prompt, and I'm basically ignoring the first one. Sometimes it's better just do this with an example, see if the behavior is correct. And if it's correct, then there's something wrong with the test setup, basically. So I want to do, I want to check that if enter means search again. Searching again? Um, I just add some random things. So now it's 14, 20, 49, and I press enter. Yeah. This is the search for with suggest only true, but I want to test it with suggest only false. This one search state. That's what I want to change. Plus new dates. First one doesn't matter. Just type something. Second one, if I now press, I need to check if it's press. I'm gonna test this. What I'm trying to do is see if Yeah, this is what I want. So now there's no results, and if I press enter, that's what this test does. If I press enter, then it should be, you should search again. Do I need to do that? Do I need to search again for something that is did previously didn't return any results? Or is there other reasons for not having results? So it is searching, look, it's searching if I press enter. But the test doesn't catch that. So what do we do with that? I do double enter. No. If I type something, called once, it's called 5 times. Ah, it's called on everyone. Let's do this. So now it's actually passing with some get choice is not function. That's probably 18, line 18 is selectable. Oh, probably this one is I don't have any current choices. Not sure about this. Where else do I use get choice? Mm, where is it? 912. Did this enter? It's tempting to say that it's here. See if I have choices, else I return just validation result. Um, passes now, but get choice is still not a function. I don't get it. 18? Line 18. This is line 18. No, if I just do this for both of them. Now it works. It was this one, right? It's this one that fails, but for some reason, it says on submit. Is it on submit? Then line 18 or was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It is. That's weird. Okay, okay, okay. But where is see the current train is an anti-array.